Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Little, and you're listening to the Filmmaking Friends podcast, episode number 13. Today, we're hanging out with full-time filmmaker, cinematographer, and good friend, Mr. Alexander Yellen. We're going to talk about his job as director of photography on the hit show Z Nation. Yep, we're going to talk about zombies. We're also going to talk about how he made the transition into becoming a regular director on the show. Enjoy the episode. Alex, thank you for joining me on my little podcast.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Well, with all these episodes, I always kind of start out with the person I'm interviewing, asking them when it was that they decided they wanted to be, a filmmaker. When they decided, this is what I'm going to do to pay the bills.
So the funny thing is, I was always interested in photography. I didn't realize it was going to be filmmaking until I got to college.
Okay.
But I've always loved movies. I've always been I can remember just the striking images in films from my childhood, even from, obviously I was a kid of Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
But, there was some, I've watched a ton of bad movies on, late night television that I probably shouldn't have been watching. But I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. That was like my dream when I was a kid. And I went to school thinking about photography, and then I sort of discovered filmmaking as a profession. That's a thing you can actually do and make money at, and anybody can kind of get into it.
Yeah.
I discovered that in college and was like, all right, I'm going to give this thing a try. And I just pulled up and moved to LA, and I think my first gig was holding a boom on an AFI first year student project. And then I PA'd on some stuff until people realized I could actually load a film mag. And they didn't have, they'd usually have second ACs who also had to load.
Yeah.
And the camera department kind of adopted me. And, I was a loader for a while and then worked my way up. And it's been a couple of years as a first AC because they discovered I'm a pretty good focus puller.
Good. That's
which
good.
Is it's such a niche skill that's in demand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once I figured out I could do that, that's how I got into the union and started getting onto bigger sets and getting to be next to cinematographers and watch how they work. Because I think it's the best place to learn if you want to be a DP. Because if you're an electrician or a grip, you might be standing by whatever your piece of equipment is, but you don't get to see what the camera sees all the time, and you don't get to stand next to the DP and hear them everything that comes out of their mouth.
Yeah. About
what they're doing and why they're doing it. And
yeah.
All the little tweaks and that shadow over there. Open up that flag a little bit, bring that light down 10%, that kind of stuff that really sinks in and accumulates, over time and sort of lets you learn.
Yeah, so even when you started out, you're holding the boom or being a PA or whatever it was that was available on that show that you're paying your dues on, you knew that you needed to be in the camera department. You were focused on that. That is where I'm going. I'm going to get there somehow. I'm going to navigate there, right?
No, look, the camera is the sexiest object on a film set.
Oh yeah.
It's it's the black hole, the center of gravity. Everything sort of revolves around it, and certainly there are people who have a gravity around them as well. But I've always loved cameras since I was a little kid, and my mother was a photographer or was an avid hobbyist,
right?
And I loved playing with her cameras when I was a kid, and just they understood that. But I've always been attracted to cameras and loved making images, and so I was any way I can get onto a film set, I want to get onto a film set. But yes, that's where I want to be.
At some point you move on to either jumping right into being a DP or you move on to operator. What comes next for you?
So for the most part I jumped to being a DP. So the other thing is, I'm sure you had a very similar experience.
We're on kind of a similar track.
Yeah, but when you start out, you have a bunch of other like-minded, young, hungry people who all want to do different stuff, and they're all working in supporting positions. So it's I'm friends with this grip who wants to be a director, and I'm friends with this makeup person who wants to be a key, or this PA who wants to act. And so you sort of you find like-minded filmmakers and you start pooling resources and making your own personal stuff on the side. And it's I can get a camera and I can get a location, and I can get, that stunt guy who's really cool, who's a friend of mine, I can bring him in, and we can, so you start doing personal stuff on the side and building out a reel that way.
Yeah, so the first thing that you actually got to DP, was it on HD or film?
It was HD.
It was HD. Short film? Feature?
Actually, it was a feature.
Yeah, right to a feature.
Yeah, and it was a little...
That's awesome.
It was a tiny little, no budget, mockumentary feature called Matrimonium. great experience, great entree, and just getting that first credit is worth everything.
Yeah, once you have a film under your belt, then all of a sudden people feel like, okay, I can. It's always that first job, right? It's always that first thing where people take a chance, whether it's directing your first episode of television or shooting your first feature, or whatever that might be,
Right. I think the hardest thing in this business is just to prove to people that you're somebody who can deliver. And that you can have all the resume and all the credits and all the good-looking stuff in the world, but until somebody has worked with you, they don't know for sure if you're for real. And I can certainly tell you that the reverse is true, that sometimes you'll hire someone on a recommendation or because they submitted and they had a good-looking application and they turn up and they're a fraud. And they're just not anywhere near as good as what they advertised. But once you've been in the trenches with someone, if that's somebody you want to work with again, and you can usually tell, within an hour.
And you said some interesting things I want to talk about, specifically, the things you learned from other directors that you work with, specific to Z Nation. And...
I can shorten up the rest of the. I can shorten up the journey a little bit.
Yeah, just tell me a few more of the highlights of the journey, and then let's get to Z Nation because I'm intrigued by your process and see how it is compared to my process.
So there was some overlap while I was still in AC, where I started getting DP jobs more regularly.
Yeah.
So I was still a full-time first AC, but I got in with this company, The Asylum, which is famous or infamous depending on how you look at it.
I think they're famous.
So I did 6 movies in 3 years for them
as a DP.
Yeah. And then a couple of guys who were sort of up the pecking order from me moved on to other projects, and suddenly I became there in 2010. I sort of became their guy. And so I did, in the next 3 years, I did another 25 movies as a DP for those guys.
Basically just live on set, man.
Yeah, it was, and there was a period of time where they were doing 14-day movies.
Yeah. And
it was one a month. So it was 2 weeks prep, 2 weeks shoot, 2 weeks prep, 2 weeks shoot, 2 weeks prep, which is, on the one hand, it's a grind, and it can be incredibly taxing. And those productions were incredibly taxing, but they were also incredible learning experiences because they're all different.
Yeah.
They all present you with really interesting challenges on the fly.
Yeah.
And the stakes, if we're honest, aren't the highest. So there's an opportunity to make mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah. This is kind of the training ground for Z Nation for you, because the things you're learning on these films with these guys at Asylum is really helping you to have the best skills possible for Z Nation.
Absolutely.
I think that's where you're going anyway.
Yeah. But so in that mix, I started getting, once the schedule stretched out a little bit, I started going in on other people's shows to basically direct second unit and clean up. So I was sort of a DP director, and they'd be behind on something, or there was an action sequence they needed to outsource. So I'd come in and just do second unit for other people. Yeah. And I built sort of a second unit directing reel that way. And finally they were like, okay, you're pretty good at this. Maybe you should direct one of these things.
Now, did you become DJ at that point?
No. I became DJ on Z Nation.
Okay, so at that point you're still doing non-union stuff as for second unit.
So I was a union first AC still at this point. I hadn't even re-rated as a union DP yet. Again, that's all Z Nation.
Yeah.
That was sort of the big jump forward for me.
So then Z Nation gets pitched. SyFy loves it. They're going to do it. Do you go through an interview process, or Alex is the guy, dude? I mean, he's so perfect for this. It's his.
No, I did. I definitely had to interview.
You did.
I had an inside track with the producers, but
which helps, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, you're in the trenches with people you know. They know what they get from you. They know how you work.
Exactly.
So they know what they're getting. Yeah.
And certainly the people who have worked with me know that I'm pretty all in on stuff, and I go 150 miles an hour, and I show up early, stay late.
Yeah.
Eat, sleep, and breathe work, which is a blessing and a curse depending on which aspect of your life you're talking about.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely, I interviewed with the showrunner, and I came in with a deck to pitch and ideas on, framing, color, camera movement.
Oh, okay.
Which was very much, and I knew it was going to be a tight budget, and we weren't in a tight schedule, and we weren't going to have sort of the resources to do sort of a really high key kind of production, something as glossy as The Walking Dead, for example. And so my pitch was very much leaning into the opposite direction. do a sort of it's almost like documentary of the apocalypse. Like we're on a journey with the camera's a character and we're on a journey with the cast.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it feels like when you watch it.
And I think that style evolved, but season 1 it was if a character couldn't be in that place, the camera can't be in that place.
Oh,
so there's no crane stuff, no drones.
I remember noticing that when I watched it. I said it's all on the ground. It's all with them where they could be. Yeah, totally.
Very little long lens stuff. It was a very wide lens focused show, and we're always close to the cast.
Yeah.
And so that was a very harsh, desaturated color grade that really leans into the grittiness of it. Mm-hmm. And that was the look, and a heavy grain pass too.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the tech part about Z Nation because I'm fascinated about this. Okay, so you shoot 42 minutes of content like a regular show, right? Right. How many days?
6 days. We started with a 6-day schedule.
Yeah.
So now we're down to 5. But
you're screaming, man.
It's no joke, and some of that is second unit has really grown as a tool, and that team has gotten more efficient.
Yeah.
So, and it's an action-heavy show, so we have to hand off a fair amount of action stuff and details and clean up stuff to second unit, and that's the only way we're going to get through it.
You shoot on Red Epics.
Yep.
2, I'm assuming? Maybe 3?
It's a 2-camera show.
2-camera show. You're the DP and a camera operator?
Yep, DP and a camera operator.
Okay.
The B camera operator, for the most part, has been a guy named Federico Verardi, who's another talented DP in his own right, and I'm a big fan. I think I'm a good operator.
Yeah.
And that's something I really enjoy doing, just the physicality of it.
Yeah.
And I really like having another DP as a B camera operator, like somebody with a cinematographer's sensibilities.
Yeah.
Because it means I can trust them to compose and think about the kind of things I would be thinking about just in the terms of their own shot.
Yeah.
Is the lighting working for my shot? Is the composition good? I don't need to micromanage. So somebody who's a pure operator, sometimes they need supervision, they need management. You sort of can't trust them to freelance as much.
Yeah.
But if you have a DP who's your operator, everything becomes easier for me. It takes a huge burden off of my plate and lets me do something that I have fun doing.
Yeah. With the amount of setups you do in a day, I'm assuming you guys live on zoom lenses.
Actually, no.
You do go to both primes? What do you do?
So the majority, especially the first 4 seasons, almost everything main unit was primes.
Okay.
And a lot of that had to do with we were shooting in, especially interiors, we were shooting in some really dark spaces with really limited or harsh lighting. So it was originally a choice for stop.
Yeah.
But also, we were doing so much stuff with flares, and so our it's a Cooke S4 lens package that is our primary lens set.
Great set.
And those flare so beautiful, the flare and the wash on those lenses looked so good that I really wanted to use them whenever possible. So this season especially, we have a Sigma 18 to 35.
Yeah, I have one of those. That's a great little lens.
That's sort of become our A camera standard lens. And
it's like a mini prime.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
And then B cameras either on longer primes or it's on a Canon 30 to 105 zoom. So one of the reasons it happened this season was I was directing episodes 2 and 3 of season 5.
Yeah.
So I was in prep during the season premiere. So Fetty shot the first 4 episodes.
Okay.
And I really, I like Fetty a lot. I really trust him. And he was like, hey, what do you think about moving to a Zoom-based system? And here's some, he showed me some reference and some flare stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, I trust you. If you want to take it that direction, you're DPing these episodes.
Yeah.
I can roll with it. And so, I let him sort of take over the onset look a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, the lighting system and sort of the compositions all stayed the same. It was just a change in lenses. And I don't think anybody watching the show is going to really notice tremendously the difference.
Setups in a day?
So I think I'm going to guess. Let me guess.
Go
for it.
I'm going to guess.
Go for an average.
Okay, average.
I don't give you the range, but I'll tell you the average.
Okay, too. Being that, we're talking lens changes count as new setups. We'll count those. So 2 cameras and everything. I'd say you guys are up between 80 and 100 a day. That'd be my guess.
So our average is a little less than that.
Okay.
Our average is in the high 60s.
Okay.
I think our lowest setup count in a day was 35.
You guys are probably doing something tricky.
Yeah, well, it was also, right, it was like longer, we did a couple episodes with much longer takes.
Yeah.
Or like really complicated setups.
Yeah.
And then our record was 114.
Are you pretty much doing handheld? Are you using gimbals? Are you using rigs? What do you guys, are you on cine saddles all the time? I mean, what kind of is your...
So season one was entirely handheld. I mean,
Yeah.
I had an easy rig.
Easy rig,
For the A camera, because a lot of it plays from, especially the A camera stuff, played from like waist level.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of lower heroic angles.
Yeah.
And B camera was usually on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Starting season 2, our key director, a guy named John Himes, was really into gimbals, and this was fairly early in the gimbal sort of revolution. So this was 2015. So we brought a Movi M15 in as for our A camera. And we spent 2 seasons living A camera Movi, but B stayed handheld. And we'd even add a little bit of shake to the Movi in post if it felt too smooth. But also sometimes there were some specialty situations where we'd stabilize it and it would almost look like a dolly move.
Yeah.
And then the season 4, we phased the gimbal out a little bit, but it came back strong, and now it's a Ronin 2. Which is, it's the Cadillac of gimbals, and no question is heavy.
Okay, when it comes to working with a gimbal, though, there's the setup time to balance it and everything. And as fast as you guys are going, is there a third camera that just lives on one and it just sits on the cart? And you actually have to say, okay, I'm going to go shoot with A camera, and while A camera gets this, B camera is going to go over there, and you're going to rig it on the gimbal?
No, it lived on the gimbal. A camera was always on the...
Oh, it just
A
doesn't
was
come
always
off.
on. It never comes off.
I got
Or
it.
if it comes off, it comes off. That was always the deal. It was like, I would tell every director, it's like, if you want to be off the gimbal, you have to commit to a half day.
It has to be into lunch. Like we have to finish with it, because there needs to be time after lunch to put it back on.
Exactly, because otherwise you're going to lose it for 45 minutes while they build it back for handheld or build onto the gimbal.
Yeah.
And so what you wind up with is a situation where the gimbal is, I always used to say it was 20-20-60, is
60, okay.
20% of the shots we were doing, it was totally the right tool. Like you couldn't find a better tool than this gimbal.
Yeah.
For 60% of the shots, it was fine. Like it works fine. Maybe I'd prefer something different, but it's, you get really good at doing those shots that are okay with it.
Yeah.
And then 20% of the time I just wanted to throw the thing on the ground and smash into a million pieces.
Yeah, because you want to put that camera in that little shelf or wherever it is, and it's just not going to fit in there, or however you were trying to configure it.
Or it was even, especially on Easy Rig, doing tilts, like a static low-angle tilt, because you're fighting the weight of the gimbal. You have to twist it up. And I think my right forearm was about 3 times the size of my left forearm from just holding these static A-camera tilts.
Yeah, sure.
On these long dialogue scenes. And sometimes you'd hear directors be like, great, hold that, go back to this line. I'm like, no, man, I got to stop. I'm dying.
Yeah, my arm is on fire.